Hello everyone, welcome to Analogue, a hate story. Today we're going to be speaking with Mute about access logs that we've already seen before with Hyune, but now we're going to get Mute's perspective on the whole thing. Okay, so we went over all of block 2. Let's head to block 3. And we can show the message. No need to reread this because we've already read about these passages in past episodes, so if you want to reiterate, go ahead and do that. That's actually from before I knew her. It's pretty hard to imagine her as a blushing newlywed, honestly. She was an awfully good friend of mine. We chatted a lot. Look, I mean, don't get me wrong. She did a lot of things that were really wrong and really gross. I don't condone that, and I definitely don't understand it. Not that it could be cheating or anything. It's not like you can have love with just women, but still, gross. But please, look past all that. Like, yes, she was a bad wife, but you have to understand, it wasn't her fault. It's like what I reported to my mistress, Ryu Jawe. None of the problems in her marriage were her own fault. She was just the wife of a lousy man, plain and simple. Mostly she tried to do the best she could. She was a really great woman, so please don't look down on her, okay? I never did. And sorry for that long, awkward pause while seeing what Mute had to say there. Some pop-up came into my view. So let's reiterate the laughing. Oh, no, we can't. Laughable situation. A proper damn gentleman. Let's see what she has to say about this. Well, this is what I told him at the time. I could have maybe, done without the description of her breasts. But that kind of story was definitely pretty common for him. The part where he cleaned up after his family's mess, I mean, not the details about immoral-looking common women. And, well, the drinking, too. But look, that part he had good cause for. Sure, it was his ruin, but you can't blame him for that. I mean, the stuff he had to put up with. If you had it like that, I'm sure you'd do the same. It wasn't all that bad, really. We'd spend a lot of evenings drinking together, talking long into the night. Well, he would anyway. Obviously not really so much drinking on my part. But he was the kind of man who'd still pour a glass for you all the same. So that whole sarcastic thing about him being a proper gentleman, it's not sarcastic. He really was. Well, he was being sarcastic, but still. He totally, absolutely was the best damn gentleman around. I don't know if I buy that it's not his fault thing. It's his choice to toxify his liver and such. Plus, he decided to take on the burdens of cleaning up the messes of the family. High Magistrate Smith Sang-min, huh? Well, as High Magistrate, he was one of the highest-ranking officials until just before the end. I don't want to paint a misleading portrait, as I understand. He was a very just man, and performed his function quite well. It was politics that caught up to him in the end. It's like I reported to my mistress, Ryu Jawe. I always trip up on that name. He might have been a good magistrate, but his family conduct was less than the pinnacle of virtue. How many wives a man takes is no business but his own, and he never did anything illegal, but knocking up courtesans owned by the court? Man, that's just bad politics. And, well, you saw what that kind of neglect did. It forced his wife to seek comfort wherever she could find it. So that's why he lost his position. Years of embarrassment in the family finally culminated in him turning into a real liability for the emperor. But it wasn't always like that. Here, let me try to paint an even portrait of him for you. I've added an assortment of logs about him. I hope this gives you a good idea of what I mean. Aha, so going over some past entries here, we gain some new insights. But first, let's just show her this. I know it sounds like Sang-min is just being harsh on his little brother, but I assure you, his characterization of him isn't wrong. I honestly kinda tended to avoid him. I was friends with his older brother's wife, and his younger brother was an absolute gentleman, but he was not a very nice man. He was the sort of person that the court exams were supposed to keep out, in theory. Didn't work, of course. He studied just as well as his brothers, or so Sang-jung told me. Here, you want to see the usual sort of behavior that you'd get from Smith Sang-kyu? I see you've read a log by the Kim son about getting roughed up. Well, that's him all right. So he was the rapscallion that bruised the Kim guy. Man, reading that, I just can't believe that's her. She used to be so timid. Thinking of me as having a shocking crass manner, or being afraid of her brother-in-law at the door? Well, it's all what I expected from her at the time. She just changed a whole lot as she got older. Well, honestly, maybe not as much as I thought. She might have gotten bolder behind her husband's back, but in front of him, that never really changed much. Well, what do you think? Should she have listened to Sang-jung about being less deferential to her husband? You know, it's been a while since I've played this game, and I actually forgot what that log was, so I'm going to say no. Yeah, I figured. You're right. Good for her that she didn't. Having a bad man for a husband, well, that's hardly an excuse. Either way, well, she did change in some ways. In some ways, not for the better, as you've seen with her relationship with that whore. That's why it amazes me so much rereading something that old, knowing what she would later sink to. Ah, well. Yeah, her seeking for love wherever she could find it, even within another woman, that's not surprising at all in this overbearing patriarchal society. Did we miss the past log? We did. I'm just going to go down the line because I have not seen this game in a while. I know what the story is going on, and anytime there's a mention of a husband, I know that usually he's in the wrong. But let's see what the legendary temper was all about once more. I remember it was the Emperor, or the High Magistrates rather, legendary temper that surprised everyone. See, he wasn't always that bad. He was an embarrassment and far from a pinnacle of virtue. I didn't think that highly of him. But at the end of the day, it was about politics, not about his character. So he had to have this outrageous temper. For political reasons? Okay. Now, Mute seems to be very fond of this Smith family, so let's see. Of course I was on the verge of tears. She seems to be the only one who gave a crap that this guy drank himself to death. He meant a lot to me. I mean, you know, I'm just a computer. He wasn't family or anything, and it's not like I have the body for that kind of relationship. But still, he was the closest thing I had to a husband. We had a really close relationship. I really did love him. I definitely can't forgive her for not sincerely mourning his death, or not taking it seriously. He was a great man. I'm just disappointed in her. It really is an awful confession. He really did deserve much better. So much better. So there's the difference between Mute and Hyune. Hyune was an actual person that somehow became an artificial intelligence, via GLaDOS style, I'm guessing, became a core. And Mute was always just the security program that guarded these access logs before we broke into them. Now I do want to read Block 4, but this episode I'm going to try and go over all the old documents that we've had and see if Mute has any more insights to add to them. Oh, hey, wait! That reminds me of something else. Well, you know Hana, right? The whore who got herself seduced by Sojin. There's not really a lot of writing from her, but I've got a log entry from Kim Young-suk about her. You probably want to see it. Right. Well, I'll let you get back to it then. But I figured that's probably something you're pretty interested in. I don't plan on 100%ing this game just because in order to do that I'd have to do all the other endings, and I want to leave that a surprise for you people so you have some motivation to pick up this game on your own time. But in order to get the said 100%, you have to go access all these documents. You have to find all the logs and get as much information as you possibly can from the Magungwa. Okay, so that's all from the past. Let's move on to Block 10. Confidence. Oh, I remember this one. When the husband asks for a new wife. Didn't one of the past Republican running mates try to do that while his wife was in a coma? Hey, I'd like to get a new wife now, would you mind? I don't remember his name because he's a scumbag anyway. So, you want to talk about Queen Ryu Jiaowei, huh? She was kind of more than just my queen. It's, well, I guess I have to explain my own position for it to make sense. So, like, yeah, I appear to be just a woman, but that's just my personal appearance. I'm actually, you know, a computer program. So when I say I was, well, I still am really, in charge of security for the whole ship, I mean it. I was an actual official. I outranked pretty much everyone on the ship, save for the Emperor, and of course, by extension, his primary wife. So while I might have reported directly to the Emperor in theory, and I did with others in the past, Emperor Ryu in Ho chose to let that sort of thing go through his wife instead. What this is all getting at is, for all intents and purposes, she was my real mistress, not him. We were pretty close. Well, as close as you can be, to your better anyway. I liked her a lot. She was actually really intelligent, for a woman, and was surprisingly tough and for a noble. I know, that doesn't really sound attractive, but trust me, with her it was pretty okay. She managed to be great while still knowing her place. So, yeah, like I said, I liked her a lot. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. This is my point. I remember those admonitions because I actually helped her write them. I mean, I didn't write a single word or anything, but she asked me for advice. Mostly she was just modest. So let me see. I really want you to get the right impression of her, you know? She kind of wrote a lot. Well, nobody's perfect. Don't let that cloud your judgment of her, though, alright? I mean, I'm not impressed either, but at least it means you'll be able to see what she was like. Alright, I've got 3 for you to see. Well, one's kind of actually about me, but still, it shows you just how good a person she was. If you want to see the rest of the admonitions, let me know. I can do that too. That's what I wanted to hear. Alright. Now we get a little bit more information on Ryu Jiaowei. Can we show her this one? Yes, we can. What do you know? All the new log documents we get in this episode, we will definitely go over in the next episode. I'm just more concerned right now of figuring out Mute's whole position on the situation. Right, so Her admonitions, then. Well, when your parents do find you a wife, your mother probably has a set of these prepared for her, assuming she knows how to write at least. Anyway, the point is, it's considered fairly typical for a new gentleman's bride to get a series of verses explaining what will be expected of them as a wife, as well as just friendly advice. Well, the reason why these ones aren't written in verse is pretty simple, I guess. It's because the Queen Ryu Jiahui had absolutely no ear for it. Honestly, personally, I think that's pretty endearing. But she was really worried about the pale bride. Since she was a younger, prettier girl for her husband and all, so she wanted to make a really strong impression. I suggested to her that she do what she was good at, and just write them in prose. Since if she was as uneducated as I thought she would be, and she was, it's not like she'd know any better anyway. Well, I guess that backfired a little, since it turned out that she was so uneducated that she didn't actually even know any letters. Whoops. Anyway, here. Let me just give you a giant info dump and pass along all the admonitions for you to see yourself. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you very much, Mute. I definitely want to hear what the old bride has to say to the new pale bride. That's going to be pretty interesting stuff in the next episode. Okay, Block 10, we have already read all that is to be said about the old log documents that we've seen already. So in the next episode, we will start to read Block 4, and if we have some time, we will move on to Block 10. See you all then.